Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Need, and this podcast is brought to you by Coach's Corner University. You can use code podcast300 to save $300 off of our education collective. That's over 200 hours of continuing education lectures from myself and over 30 additional contributing instructors. So $50 for lifetime access to the entire library and everything that will be added to it. We're also brought to you by Bacon and Barbells. You can visit baconandbarbells.co and use code Paul10. We are also sponsored by Barefoot Shoes. Go to barefoot.store and use code Paul, and it'll get you 10% off there. And then TC Nutrition, code TCXONEED for 10% off there as well. Now that I'm finished the worst ad reads in the history of podcasting, I bring to you my honorable guest, Dr. Ken Kinakin. Ken is someone who I have looked up to in this industry and has done more for this industry than most people will ever give him credit for. He is the mastermind behind the SWIS Symposium, bringing together some of the most incredible minds in the fitness and health and rehab industries together to share their knowledge. And when did you start that, Ken? When was the first SWIS?
1999, 25 years ago.
Which is probably older than most of the listeners of this podcast. Not to age us at all, but yeah. So Ken, welcome to the podcast, man. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Oh, thank you. This will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. So as I was kind of getting mentally prepared for this, I realized that outside of just being a wizard, I actually don't know much about you other than you're a meathead.
Yeah, a wizard meathead. I like that one.
A wizard meathead. That should be on your business card.
You know what? I got to get a t-shirt, wizard meathead.
Yeah. So maybe for those living under a rock who don't know who you are, give a little bit of a spiel on, who are you and what do you do?
Right. So my name is Ken Kinakin. My profession is chiropractic, but I've included a lot of other modalities over the years. So I've been in practice for about 32 years now. And the reason why I got into chiropractic is that I sustained a knee injury. I was getting ready for the Canadian National Powerlifting Championships. And at that time, I was in the 165s and I was squatting about 525. And 2 weeks before the nationals, I basically was just warming up with about 400 pounds, and my right knee, it sounded like a bed sheet ripping, and I went, ah, shit. So obviously I had to pull out, and you know all about that, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately. And so I went and saw the medical doctor, and his advice was, we'll do leg extension instead of squats. And I'm like, they're not going to pull a leg extension machine onto the platform. So I went on a journey to try and find someone that could help me. So I went to massage. That wasn't helpful. I went to see physio, and they just gave me some ultrasound. And after about 8 months, I was still, I could squat up to about 400, but I still had pain. And so my dad, he told me, he says, well, why don't you go see the chiropractor? I went, why? It's my knee, it's not my back. And he said, go. So I went, and I saw Merv Ritchie, and Merv is a marathon runner. And so his arm was about this big, like he weighs about 130 pounds. And, I'm all jacked up and, young kid at that time. And he started doing some muscle testing, and he found the right side where I had the knee problem was substantially weaker. Left side he could have done chins off of, it was very strong. And then he took some x-rays, but he basically determined that the entire pelvis had torqued and twisted just because of the heavy lifting, the use, and it actually created an inhibition on that right hand side. And so therefore, I could squat 400, I could go up and down stairs, no knee pain, but I couldn't go any heavier. And that was really interesting. So he started doing some adjustments in the low back, didn't even touch the knee. And he said, Ken, your knee healed a long time ago. And I was like, okay. So I went in and started getting some treatments with him. And literally in about 3-4 weeks, I was back squatting over 500, no pain. And so that led me on to, I said, so I'm a welder by trade. So I used to build weight training equipment, but I also used to build bridges and all that. So I come from the trades. And so I went back to school. And so I was working at a recreation center also at that time. So I'd go to, work, go to school during the day. And at night, I take care of a recreation center. And I did that. And then I got my applications in for chiropractic college, and back in 1986, and then I graduated in 1991. And what I found was that I started lecturing across Canada, United States, and I saw that the personal trainers were trying to fix things, and you don't have the tools that health practitioners do. I also saw on the other side that the health professionals, chiropractors, physios, athletic trainers, medical doctors, were giving well-intentioned bad advice on training. Squats are bad for the knees, all this other stuff. So I took it upon myself in 1999 to create the Society of Weight Training Injury Specialists. So this would be all the top people in the world. Dr. David Leaf, who does all the muscle testing, Dr. Mike Leahy, who basically created active release technique, ART, Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale, medical doctor, that's one of the top powerlifters of our time, and definitely within nutrition and drugs. And we put them all into a room, and literally they all work together, and you could see the different models, the different ideas that they would all come up with. And so I started doing that to educate the populations and the health professionals that what, here is really good training information. And then the training population saying, if you do have a client that has different disorders, this is where you need to send them. And really try and create a like-minded community of everyone, but trying to bring all the different modalities in, not just chiropractic, but acupuncture, pulse magnetic field, laser, ART, myofascial, all these different wild techniques that most people have never heard of or even seen. And so it added on. And my belief is that the more tools that you have, the more impact that you'll have on any type of injury. So I've been doing that for the past 25 years. I'm doing one November 2nd here in Mississauga, Ontario. And it's a 1-day event. And this by far will be the greatest SWIS that I've ever done. Primarily that I have changed the format to make it about 80% experiential, meaning that no PowerPoint. So in the training stream,
Hell yeah.
I haven't released this yet, so I'll be talking about what I'm putting together. But I have the powerlifting masterclass, and what that is that so. Last year, I told all the presenters that were in the training stream, make it experiential, don't make it educational, don't make it a PowerPoint. There's no reason why someone should spend a couple of grand on flights and hotel and food and to sit there and watch someone talk to their PowerPoint slides, which is what had happened with half the presenters. So I made it very difficult for the presenters to do that again. So I took out the stage, the screen, the PowerPoint, the computer, everything. There's
I
nothing there.
love
In
it.
fact, we don't even have chairs. And so what I'm bringing in is 2 squat racks, 2 benches, and 2 deadlift platforms. And so what it'll be is a small group format that I have for the squat. I'll have Dave Tate. He's coming up from Elite FTS. Tom Shepard, who works with great coach, works with Dave Tate. So they're going to be coaching people, and we're going to have small groups. So probably 5 to 10 people per group, where Dave Tate will look at your technique and then give you a few little coaching points, and the next person will come in. And then we've got 2 bench presses. So we'll have Bill Kazmaier. We'll have Jeremy Hartman doing on the actual bench press. And Jeremy Hartman basically got Powerlifting Coach of the Year. He deals a lot with high school. And then for deadlift, we'll have Matt Wenning, and I just confirmed Amber Alice. And Amber is just I think she
Very, very
squats
strong woman.
I think she squats 800 and benches around 6. Like, I mean, it's just through the roof,
Yeah.
and super smart, wonderful woman. So literally, you'll be spending time at each of the stations where you get your technique. Here's the key point. Okay, you get your technique cleaned up, but now you watch other people, because everyone has different
Absolutely.
problems, and you want the cue points. What is Dave looking at? How is he altering it? That's where the magic actually is. And I've done that for a number of times with Ed Cohn, when Ed and I would pull people up out of the audience and he would coach people, and he has just one or two key things, transforms the lift. So that's just one of the things. And then we got the mobility prep, and we got Matt Nickel, Lauren Goldenberg, Jordan Shallow, Paul Gagne, Brian Peters, and who else do I have? Name escapes me. Anyways, we've got six. Justin Kavanaugh. And so again, going through and making it experiential. So that's the goal for this year, where virtually very little PowerPoint, very little theory, lots and lots and lots of interaction. When I go to seminars, if I can get one thing out of the seminar, it's a huge hit. You will be getting dozens and dozens of things that you've never seen before. So that's my goal for this year.
I love it. I think it's what the industry needs. The one thing that I really enjoy about Swiss, and I think differentiates it from any other seminar or conference in the industry, is most conferences are centered around maybe one niche or one element. You might have like Ali Gilbert puts on an amazing conference, the Silverback Summit,
Yeah.
primarily focused on men's health TRT. Then you have the Real Coaches Summit. Aram Gregorian puts that on. Fantastic for coaching education. Swiss is the one place where you can take these people that who otherwise disagree with each other and put them in one room, and somehow through the magic of real life, everyone collaborates.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they all add on to each other. And the doing this for 25 years, I've had some super alpha male and female people there. And it is the one seminar that I've been to that you leave your ego at the door. Because I mean, there's just so many smart people there. They're all working together. And if you were a chucklehead and trying to be all that in a bag of chips, you're just not invited back. So really trying to get like-minded people to work together. And so there's four streams. There's a training stream, a nutrition stream, a treatment rehab stream, and also a thing called panels, that there'll be panel discussions. And so the whole focus is that you can go to any of them, and whatever floats your boat as far as what you want to learn, what do you want to experience, who do you want to see. So it is extremely unique. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I got so many things that I'm doing this year that have never been done before.
Let's talk a little bit about, so most of the audience who listens to the podcast are coaches. And
Uh-huh.
when you mentioned it actually in the context earlier, when you were speaking in the context of a rehab professional having a large toolbox and
Yeah.
understand, and that's actually one of the things I was wanting to touch on, and maybe you can go into this too. I find in the field of rehab, you have your athletic trainers, you have your chiropractors, physiotherapists, physical therapists. I find the chiropractors who do a good job, right? There obviously are chiropractors who are snap, crackle, pop, see you later, but the ones who actually dive in and do a good job seem to have the most flexibility in their treatment approach. And
Hmm.
they utilize a ton of different modalities, both passive and active. You are someone who, like, I mean, let's face it, I called you a wizard. It's more like mad scientist. You have all these little, devices and trinkets and things like that. You sent me a picture of your living room. It looks like a lab. Um, Maybe we'll get into that later, but I'd like for you to speak a little bit on the idea of building that toolbox as a coach, as someone working with people, why that is so important.
Well, I think the biggest thing is to really identify what are you good at. And I've always told people, if you want a successful practice, become really, really, really good at one thing and focus in on it. And the classic example would be someone like Dave Tate. And so then his best friend and training partner, John Meadows. And this is the best example. If I had a a client that wanted to learn about powerlifting and get the best coaching possible, and they lived in Columbus, Ohio, I would send him to Dave Tate. And if I had a bodybuilding client and send him to Dave Tate, Dave would go, "No, John can. John's way better than me. I've never even been on a bodybuilding stage. In fact, I really don't even really like bodybuilding." And the same thing, if I would send a powerlifting client to John, he would send it to Dave. Not that John and Dave couldn't do it, but they know that they're really good at what they do. And the best example is Stu McGill. Stu has created a huge market for himself because he's focused in on the low back. I'll give you a story here. So I did SWIS, and then I took some time off. And in 2015, I decided to do it again. So I phoned up Stu McGill, who's one of the top people in the world as far as for back injuries, rehabilitation, everything else. And I phoned up Stu and I said, "Stu, I'm going to be running SWIS." He says, "Great," because he presented for me in 2001. And he says, "Well, what's the theme?" Because I always had kind of a theme at that time. And I said, "It's the shoulder." He says, "No." And Stu knows a lot about the shoulder.
Of
Trust me.
course.
Yeah. And I said, "Why?" He says, "Because I'm low back." And I went, he says, "When you do low back, give me a call." I went, "All right." So then I phoned in 2016, I phoned Stu again. I go, "Stu, I'm doing Swiss again, and it's on the low back. I'm there." So so he's able to, because the challenge that a health practitioner has, or even a trainer, is that people that trying to do everything, if I meet a coach that says, I said, "Well, what do you specialize in?" "Well, I do everything." I go, "Okay, what do you mean?" "Well, I can do powerlifting, I can do bodybuilding, I can do hockey, I can do football, long distance running, and I'm like, "Yeah, you're not getting anyone from me." And they're like, "Why?" "Because you're not good. Like, you got good, better, best." I said, "I'm looking for the best. I'm not interested in good. Can you do it? Sure. But I'm not interested in someone that's just good." Because what happens if I refer someone to a coach as a health practitioner and they screw it up? That patient comes back on me and says, "You never send me there again. In fact, I'm not going to see you again." So I'm putting my reputation on the line whenever I refer out. And it can have a lot of different implications on that, because all of a sudden it's tarnished my reputation. They may go around and say, "Yeah, Ken sent me to this person that just took a plyometrics course with kettlebells," and that's what they were doing and I've actually had that. You send it and the person's doing kettlebells with plyometrics and they had a knee problem. And I'm like, "Why did you do that?" "Well, I took this plyometric course." That's nice, but don't
Mhm.
have them jumping off a box. Like, I mean, it's just
That's a really important point, and I want to highlight that. So I framed the question around how does one person build a toolbox, and you took the answer towards you have to find what you're best at. If you approach any sort of interdisciplinary education from the perspective of I do this one thing really well, you then frame any interdisciplinary education onto what do these people do that I can apply to my specialty, not how can I shift myself to fit this other thing.
well, now it's just, if you start taking random courses, and I think people should to a certain degree, but if you don't know what you're good at, and you go to school, you take a course in calculus and a course on how to weld and a course on how to paint. At the very end, what do you come up with? You're not going to be good at anything. But I mean, if you want to become the best mathematician, you take all the mathematician courses because you chose that profession. And what
Mm,
happens is that trainers have to level up in the sense of you get your basic understanding of how to do it, and then from there you can really make a difference. The classic example that I tell people is that a medical doctor goes to school, he does 4 years of pre-med, then 4 years of medical school, and then from there, then they can choose whatever they want and however they specialize. They can stay within family practice, but say a person become wants to become an orthopedic surgeon.
mhm.
Beautiful. So now they spend 2 to 4 years becoming an orthopedic surgeon. then they focus in on, I'm really going to focus in on the low back. I want to become the, low back person. And then they can level up even more. And they're going, I want to do low back surgery for pediatrics, young kids. And so, as a physician who's further down the chain, if they have a kid that has low back problems, they're not going to send it to any orthopedic surgeon. They're going to go after the person that has specialized within pediatrics low back surgery because they stand out. And if you try and refer, if that medical doctor refers to them, say for liver disease, it's the wrong place. And training should be the same. I want to build a bunch of, or inspire people to take it on. As far as, can you treat other things and work with other people? Sure. But as far as your marketing, your ideas, what courses that you should be taking. If you're in bodybuilding, plyometrics doesn't play a role in that. That's sports performance. So should I take a plyometric course? No,
Probably not.
that's a shitty tool. That won't work, for you.
What I'm kind of getting at is like, so let's use the bodybuilding coach example, because I think that's probably as niche as you can get. So, you have your contest prep bodybuilding coach. Well, would it behoove you to go and take a psychology course or
Oh,
a behavior change course? And
absolutely.
right. So for me, that interdisciplinary knowledge base, like taking myself as an example, I followed very much the same framework that you outlined before. I did my kinesiology degree, then I did a couple master's degrees in exercise science. I worked in sports performance. Then I got even more highly into powerlifting coaching. And then from there, kind of blending all of my experience together. If you were to say, Paul, what's the client that you think you do better than anyone else? It's, I can get people really strong and really lean really fast.
Perfect.
And I'm
Perfect.
like, cool. So
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I would be looking at, and especially since you've competed in powerlifting, so you know what it's like at a high level, and you've
mhm.
competed in bodybuilding too. So not
At
only
a
do you have,
much less high level, yes.
yeah, but I mean, you've done it, so you
Yeah.
understand it, and you understand the nuances with it. So that's what I'm also looking at. Are you just book smart and have never, been on a platform, or have you competed before? And that,
Hmm.
because I mean, that experiential education is completely different than what you get out of books or what you get out of, a seminar or, YouTube video, social media education. So the whole focus is always who is good at what they've done, what's their track record, and if they've actually gone into that sport, it makes a huge difference. Now there are exceptions to the rule, and Matt
Of course.
Nickel would be the classic one where he was a strength coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But he is a different human being in the sense of he traveled the entire continent, spending a lot of time with all the top strength coaches for hockey. And at that time, there really wasn't a whole lot for strength training in hockey, but he understood it and understood the mechanics and did wild assessments with Ed McNeely where they're measuring lactic acid production on each shift, and just incredible amount of work. So he's you don't necessarily have to, but that's more the exception rather the rule.
I mean, I've talked to Matt a number of times, and actually, while we're on the subject, one thing that I think people miss out on when it comes to like in-person learning, because let's face it, most of the learning that coaches undertake nowadays is online, especially since COVID. It's like online, online, online. It's cheaper, easier access, lower barrier to entry. The problem is you miss out on the hallway. And I don't know if I've actually shared this story on the podcast, but so the first year that you invited me to speak, uh, I gave my talk, was doing my thing. I was very unwell because I was 2 weeks out from my bodybuilding show and was having a whole bunch of digestive stuff going on. And I was sitting by myself, kind of gathering my thoughts at a table. And Matt Nickel, who was someone at the time who I'd never had a conversation with, but I idolized, right? Sports performance, Canadian. He was, royalty, still is royalty in the industry. Takes a knee beside me and tells me how good of a job that I'm doing.
Oh, wonderful.
And I was like, I'm getting goosebumps telling the story because, like, to me, I was like, okay, I made it now. Like people know, like people who actually, my idols have become my peers. And while I'm that for me was an experience that I will never forget. But those are the types of things that you do not get to experience when you're learning at home. That networking opportunity.
Yeah, that's, I've always said that the symposium happens in the hallway. And for a number of years, I didn't know what I meant by that, but I saw what was happening. And then in 2018, it finally hit me that in the presentation rooms, it's a one-way conversation. It's from the
Hmm.
stage to the audience. And yeah, you can ask some questions possibly, but usually it's a one-way conversation. In the hallway, what I saw was that it was a two-way conversation. And so you'd have the presenters talking to the attendees, other presenters talking to themselves, and then you as an attendee can actually walk up and listen to this conversation and and learn. And if you're smart, you won't say anything. You're just going to listen and learn.
Yep.
And so that's the real magic. So this year, I've always seen that the conversations happen in the hallway, and so I've done a deep dive into AI and learning as much as about it as possible and how to utilize it. So I've actually built my a Swiss Chat GPT, and what I'm
Oh,
going to
nice.
do is upload all of my information onto the Swiss Chat GPT. I mean, I have 25 years worth of videos, hundreds and hundreds of hours of all the top presenters and everything else that no one has ever seen before because it's behind a paywall. So ChatGPT, Google, no one has ever seen this information. So I'm uploading it. But what I'm also going to be requesting of the people at Swiss this year is that they actually record their conversations in the hallway with themselves, with other people, with other presenters. And then that will be, I'm creating a Swiss ChatGPT repository where they'll be able to upload it, and that will become part of the Swiss ChatGPT. So now the attendees can now actually add on to the information, because I'm seeing, the list of people that are coming, and there's a lot of smart people coming. So to utilize that in the conversations and just to capture all those different conversations that happen is just incredible, because you normally don't see that. When you have a Stu McGill talking to Dave Tate, when Bill Kazmaier is there and Eric Serrano, and the four of them are having this wild conversation on lifting. And it's like, wow, that's powerful. And as an attendee, you're listening to this. Well, now we can actually, with the advent, of the phone, we
Hmm.
can record this, and now we actually have a platform. I'm creating a platform that it will be part of the group, the Swiss group. So that's one of the things that I'm doing.
That's pretty powerful. I've actually never heard of someone doing that before, so I'm very excited
No,
to see, what that ends up going.
yeah,
And that kind
no,
of
no.
feeds well into, the question I rambled on about earlier about technology and, your living room looking like a science lab. Talk to me a little bit about, some of the, we'll call them fringe technologies that you've ventured off into and explored.
Well, I'll talk about the ones that will probably make the most sense, because I have a lot of weird shit, and and I'm always experimenting, especially with energy medicine, because I think that's where the future is going to be. We're seeing it more and more with frequency-based modalities and technologies, and you've personally have
Yep.
experienced it. So, one is, the pulse magnetic field, and they come in all different. I have 14. I just brought three more from out west, pulse magnetic field. So similar to what you have or had with Matt, which is a ring, and it creates different frequencies, which accelerates the healing rate. So if you have any bone fractures or anything of that nature, it doubles the speed of healing, primarily by increasing the ATP synthesis and also increasing the oxygenation, in the area. There's a lot of other ones. There's literally thousands and thousands of studies on that. But the one unit that I've been experimenting with, and I haven't really talked about it, primarily because it just looks too crazy. And this is the gamma PEMF. And
Yeah,
you actually,
yeah, you played with that on me, and I was like, "What in the holy hell is
yeah,
this?"
yeah. When we're at the powerlifting meet, I kind of showed you some of it and the applications that you can do with this. So this is more frequency based, also based on chakras or the frequencies of different chakras, and also how the brain works. So this is another one that you can actually use. So I use this in training. So if I have a different problem, I can actually use this. And then you do energetic forced reps, meaning that I'll do as many reps as possible, and then I'll turn the machine on and I'll get another 10 to 20 reps due to the actual machine. And it doesn't increase DOMs, it doesn't increase anything, but I don't get sore. It's just I still don't know how this thing works. This is by Dr. Norm Shealy. So we're doing a session at SWIS on this. We did it last year and it was pretty amazing. But people, I'm bringing a bunch of these to the presentation, and you'll be able to actually experience it yourself. So
Yeah,
that's another one.
that was one of the things. The PEMF machines, the pulse magnetic field, like, yeah, we chatted briefly before we hopped on the call because I'll be honest, I'm as skeptical as anyone when it comes to like, is there evidence to support this? Is this going to be effective? And it's funny because there's a cognitive dissonance for me where in training, I am totally okay to understand that with really strong people, the rules don't apply. You have to make your own rule book. But for some reason, when it comes to rehab modalities, I'm like, no, there has to be evidence. So when Matt offered me the PEMF, I was like, I don't know, man, I'll do it, but who knows? And I'm sitting here 10 weeks post quad, like double quad tear. I have full range of motion. I'm getting 13,000 steps a day. I've already reached isometrics at 120 degrees. I'm loading at 60 degrees. I've done deadlifts. I've done leg curls. I'm doing BFR legs. Like, they have no pain. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm only
Um,
slowing down my rehab because I'm kind of scared, to be honest, how fast it's going.
Yeah, well, you have to respect the tissues. You know, it'll restore the strength fairly quickly and heal quickly, but it still takes a while for it to be fully. So yeah, you have to. What you want to do is train it. You don't want to test it, and that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the problems that people have is that, oh, it feels good. I wonder how much I can lift before it hurts, and that's just testing it. And you're just
Totally.
gonna. I deal with that every day in the clinic. So with in regards to modalities, here's an evidence-based. Here's the problem with evidence-based. I personally have 10,000 books. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm about as I got issues. But I mean my whole focus has always been to educate and to try and find what works, what doesn't, and why, and try and get the basis of it. And over the years, what I've discovered is evidence based is based on technology that's actually able to measure it. And a lot of things, especially when you're dealing with energy medicine, we can't measure a lot of the different physiological changes because they're so minute. And if you
Interesting.
understand the human body, the the electrical impulses, all of the energy coming off the body is so subtle. It takes incredible technology to try and measure that. There's a thing called I had in 2002. I had Dr. James Oshman present for me, and he's from Yale University. He has his PhD, and he was showing different technologies out there. And he has a thing called a SQUID device, which is a super quantum informational device. And so he's able to measure the energy coming off of your body up to 14 feet away. So, I mean, there are energies coming off people that they're not even aware of. And we know that from the sense of, if you meet someone and they just have weird, creepy energy. That's the only way that you can, because there's a dissonance between you two. Like if you're a
For
happy,
sure.
good person and this person is evil, you're just not going to get along. And in other people, when you meet them, it's like, it feels like I've known you all my life, and there's a real,
Yeah.
symbiotic, and you energetically you connect. And the more that we understand how the body works, actually how the planet Earth works, as far as energies, then it really starts to, get higher and higher. But evidence-based is, whether it's in training, whether it's in treatment, whether it's in anything, the challenge will always be, can we measure it? And we're getting closer. We're getting better technologies, especially functional MRIs and whatnot. So they did a study that, what they did is they hooked up a functional MRI, and if you pinprick, say the big toe acupuncture point, and you can measure the speed, and we know that the speed of the actual nervous system and how long it would take to light up that area. Well, what had happened is that they actually stimulated, an acupuncture point on the big toe, and it was faster than what the nervous system could actually take it. So there's
Mm-hmm.
another energetic system that we are completely unaware of that actually works with the brain. And this is where energy healers, and whether it be Reiki or, homeopathy or any of these other things, these subtle body treatment protocols, they work. We're not sure how, and especially even things like acupuncture. You stick a needle in the calf, and all of a sudden your shoulder strength increases. In fact, that's one of the things. So this is the MPS Dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the most incredible units that I've utilized, and Dr. Bruce is coming with Joe Durant. But this is the one unit that, you're able to actually make scars disappear. And I've done it a number of times, which breaks all rules. Like, even old scars that have been around for years, when you treat it. So what happens is the skin should be negative polarity, but if you get a
Okay.
scar, if you get a cut or anything else, that scar is positive. And so you would use two units, one on each side of the scar. One is on negative, the other one is on biphasic. So you can change the polarity of the unit, and it runs a circuit to restore the normal polarity of the actual skin in that area that you have the scar. And
Mm-hmm.
now that scar starts to disappear, because now it becomes part of the scar, part of the normal system. So, and there's different technologies that we're actually able to see that and measure that. This this is the only unit in the world approved by Health Canada to treat COVID-19. Like, that's how wild and wacky. So there, you put a clip on the ear, which the ear is innervated by the vagus nerve, and then
Mm-hmm.
another piece goes down onto the stomach, which the vagus nerve goes all the way down. If you stimulate the vagus nerve, it decreases the entire system and stops what is known as the cytokine storm, or the inflammatory storm that would fill up the lungs full of, fluids. So so Health Canada actually approved this, and for COVID-19 or long COVID. So there's so many different things that are out there that people are unaware of, and that's what I'm trying to do, is educate people on it. And number two, that you can actually use it. So we're bringing these units into the actual session at SWIS, and we're going to break into groups. And Dr. Bruce and Joe are going to show you 5 points in the body to actually increase shoulder strength and shoulder range of motion. So we did one point, stomach 38 on the calf, and I have a force transducer. Where is it? Right here. Another one of my gadgets. So this is a force transducer. So I do a lot of muscle testing. The problem
Okay.
with muscle testing has always been a qualitative test, meaning that if I test a muscle and it goes weak, how weak is it? I don't know. And that's the problem with it. Well, this now is quantitative, because now it's Bluetooth to my phone, and now I can actually measure the amount of pressure that I'm using on something. So I can actually measure the amount of force. So all of a sudden, one arm is at 20 pounds, the other arm is 40. And so now, after I'm done, has it increased the strength? You can feel it. Like, I mean, all of a sudden it's stronger, but now we
Mm-hmm.
can actually quantify it. And that's some of the different devices that we're able to do. And we actually, on myself, increased my strength about 20% in the amount of force that I could do in a bench press position in less than 5 minutes, which is just bananas.
How do you get around the fact that, and this is one thing that I had trouble with when people are like, man, well, what does that PEMF thing do? And I was like, like, do you feel it? I'm like, no, I don't, but I spend 4 hours a day in it. So it's
Yeah.
doing something. How do you get
Well,
around that?
I,
You kind of talked about it before.
yeah, the biggest thing is let them know that you don't feel it, and you don't. It's kind of like it's no different than if you have a cavity. Do you have a cavity? I don't
Mm-mm.
know. Do you have high cholesterol? I don't know. Yeah, you do. And so it's the same.
Don't call me out like that on my own podcast, Ken. Come on.
Yeah, the whole thing is that a lot of times we wonder, that you should feel all these things. And I think 40% of the time, I'm not sure the exact stat, but 40% of the time, the first symptom of a heart attack, the first symptom is death.
Mm.
So you had no symptoms whatsoever
Till you
of
died.
anything, and all of a sudden, boom, you're dead. So all this idea that you have to feel it, you can't feel a cavity, you can't feel, high cholesterol or some of it until it gets to be, a bigger and bigger problem. And most people are so disassociated from their bodies, it's incredible. Like patients will come in and I'll say, "How are you doing?" "Oh, I'm doing great." "Oh, wonderful. Why are you here?" "I got a massive headache." Well, your headache, your head is part of you. I just asked
Yeah.
you how you were doing, but I mean they're disassociated. So I try and educate people. You don't have to feel it. Sometimes you will, but a
Yeah.
lot of times you won't.
Yeah, it's definitely you deal with it a lot with like you're meeting with a new client or training a client, and they have this idea that they have to be exhausted when they leave the gym for it to be a valuable workout, and
Now,
you're kind of it's almost the same type of barrier to entry with the rehab modalities. Um, the other thing that struck me as really interesting about a lot of the modalities that we're implementing these days, or hearing more about, things like PEMF, things like laser, red light therapy, is yeah, the laser or the red light is doing something, but it's
yes,
manipulation of the central nervous system. Like all of these things have some element of nervous system implication. You talked about energy medicine. It's like, well, our nervous system is electromagnetic energy. And we're talking about parasympathetic dominance. We're talking about sympathetic dominance. And to be fair, I don't think anyone in this world right now knows what their parasympathetic nervous system is because they never get to touch it. They're always fired up, they're always stressed, they're always anxious. How much of these modalities just allowing our central nervous system to calm the fuck down
I,
is really associated with those results?
yeah. The biggest thing is to try and decrease the driving forces on that, and that's what this does. So you can hook yourself up, and literally within 15 minutes it takes you from a sympathetic state down to a parasympathetic state. And they have a fifth they use a $50,000 heart rate variability machine that had about 15 different parameters. It was out of Walter Reed Hospital. It's a Air Force uh, facility that they got access to, and they actually measured all these different components. So it can change it. The other one is this gamma PMF. And so this has three different settings on it. So with this is frequency based, and it's
Mm-hmm.
extremely subtle and you don't feel it. But so how it works is that if you think of hertz, 1 to 3 hertz is delta. That's your deep, deep, deep sleep. From 4 to 7 is theta. That's your dream state. From 8 to about 12 is alpha. That's your meditative state. From 12 to about 20 is beta. That's what you and I are in. We're in a discussion and everything else. And 20 and above is gamma. Dr. Norm Shealy studied the Buddhist monks, and after a number of hours of chanting, they could get their brain frequency up to 40, which is more of a spiritual connection, very, very high level. With this unit here, with the gamma PMF, basically takes you into that state and goes through all those different states. So You can bring yourself down by using the third setting and turn it into a parasympathetic. So with this unit here, I basically sleep with this. So I just turn it on, put it beside me on the bed, and the frequency, it works to about 18 inches away. And all of a sudden the pulses brings my, if I'm overwhelmed, especially I have been in the last little while trying to do SWIS, I need to turn my brain off. How can I bring my brain frequency down from that sympathetic state to a restorative parasympathetic state? This is probably one of the easiest ways. Can I do deep breathing? Sure. Can I do meditation? Absolutely. Will I do it? Probably not. This is basically as passive as you could get, where
Yeah.
you turn it on, put it beside you, and it has an entrainment where all of a sudden my brain entrains with this and my brain starts to come down. The energy from Ken starts to basically coordinate itself with the device beside me, and it restores it. They're doing studies with this right now at the University of Missouri, and they're seeing how this unit actually increases serotonin, which is
Interesting.
very, very powerful. Dr. Shealy actually produced this, made this for addictions. So people that were addicted to opioids, they would wear it on their head on the third setting, which is from 38 to 54. And it basically, you're in the gamma state and it changes the brain. And so I would put a hat on, I would put it on top of my head. And if I want to get work done and not go squirrel, someone just touched
Yeah.
me, it changes it all. All of a sudden, my focus turns into that, and my ability to focus increases astronomically with this. So that's one of the main units that you can utilize to change whatever that you want. And then the third setting is, or the first setting is all of the different frequencies. So it'll cycle through, and that would just re-energize the body. So all of that works.
How is that? I'm always curious about chronic adaptation versus, acute impact. So something like, let's say, for example, needling. In a lot of or even shockwave, like in a lot of instances, you might get some acute relief. Is your body actually creating a chronic adaptation so that you maintain that range of motion or maintain that strength adaptation? Like that was one of the questions that I had for you when you first showed me that gamma machine was like, okay, cool. I can get these 10 additional reps. Is that making me chronically stronger? Is that allowing me to chronically build more tissue?
I
Do
don't
you have
know.
any? Yeah. And that's the cool part.
I'm just being, I can give you a bullshit answer and throw some stuff at you, but I actually have no idea because we haven't done any studies. So there's a number of individuals around the world that, based on what they've seen with this, are testing it, and we're all utilizing it at different levels. So in certain, I know Jeremy, he's down in the States, he's a lifter, and he was using that in between powerlifting attempts, and he saw a dramatic increase. We've been using it in the actual gym. It does two things. Number one, all of a sudden, there's less and less pain. The second is that you're able to train through different ranges of motion. So I went to see Dr. Eric Serrano earlier this year, and he has a gym at his house. So we were playing around, and he says, "Ken," he says, "my shoulder is so bad, I can't even hold a 12-pound dumbbell." I went, "Get out of here." So he got a 12-pound dumbbell, and he really couldn't move it. I said, "Okay, well, I had the ring there." So I
Mhm.
put it on him, and all of a sudden he could do it. Well, Eric, being Eric, goes, "Well, let's see what else happens here." So he grabs a 20-pound dumbbell and does reps. Grabs a 30-pound dumbbell, does reps. He grabs a 40-pound dumbbell, starts doing reps. And I'm like, what the hell? I wish I would have recorded it. And he did the same thing. He's got a bad hip. He could barely even get into the squat position. Like, it was just really, really painful. He's got a degenerated hip. And so he was trying to do it. So then I just had the pulse magnetic field, this yellow ring, and I experimented where to put it on his hip. And as soon as we found the right area, he was able to drop right down and go through that. Well, Eric being Eric, there was a bar loaded. It was a safety squat bar with 185 pounds with chains. So he says, "Well, I'm going to try this." I said, "Eric, don't try it. Well, Eric being Eric, so we clipped it onto him, and he was able
Yeah.
to do reps all the way down, no pain. And so what it allows you to do, like if someone has lack of range of motion, lack of strength, and pain, how do you rehab that? It's very
Right.
difficult. With that unit, now you can go through the ranges of motion. Now you can actually have strength in order to elicit that. And the third, it's pain free. So that's the really, really cool part. And does it work in competition? You're not allowed to wear it, but I imagine that it would.
The question that I would have, again, returning to the first, is like, okay, cool, you can train through those ranges of motion with the ring, but do you keep them after like a day or two? Oh,
Yeah,
you
you
do?
do. Yeah, you do. Oh, chronically, if you continue to use
Yeah.
it, yeah, you do. Depending on the
See,
amount of degeneration, depending on the what is actually occurring with that. But yeah, yeah, you do. Well, my mother is a classic example. She had open heart surgery. She couldn't bring her arm around. It was very difficult to bring it up. And so I experimented. I put the ring on her arm, and she had full range of motion. And she was like, "What the heck?" And she hadn't been able to do that for about 10 years. And so the next day when I saw her, I was staying at her house, visiting her, and I said, "How are the arms?" She brings her arms up, says, "It's still there." And I only had it on her for about a minute. So it changed her to the point where she actually got a unit. We got her a unit, and she's 88 years old. And so she was searching for words. And so she basically wears it on her head for a short period of time, but also when she sleeps with it. And I just visited her in the summer, and she didn't have to search for words. Her memory was perfect. It was so much better than 2 years prior. So
that's insane.
it changed her brain, and it's so simple because all you do is just put it on. Like I mean, you really can't screw this up.
All right, I'm gonna go buy one. Well,
if
actually,
you,
that begs the next question. So I was looking and I was like, okay, I benefited so much from this PEMF machine. I'm like, maybe I need to buy one for myself. Maybe I need
so
to
yeah,
implement it. Go ahead.
so this isn't as powerful as the ring for bone healing.
Hmm. Right.
So each PMF, what I have, like I said, I have PMF mats, I have PMF rings, I have little devices, PMF. I have ones that stick to your head. I got a lot of PMF stuff. Anyways, each one plays a role. Just like I think if you think from a weight training standpoint, front lateral raises or front raises is different than lateral raises, which is different
Right.
than, bent over raises. They all work the deltoid, but they work different parts. And they'll like if I want to develop posterior deltoid, I'm not going to be doing front raises. And that's what happens with these energy medicine devices is that they all do work, but they become very, very specific. And they'll always anyone that's selling them, they say, "Oh yeah, yeah, it cures that." Yeah, yeah, not clinically. That's not what I see.
Hmm.
Would it help a bit? Sure. Are there other ones that are better? Absolutely. And that's the differential. But the people with this unit, they'll be at SWIS, and we're doing a session on it. So I would wait until SWIS because we'll have some discounts for you and all that, and you'll be
Well,
able to talk to the one of the inventors of it.
I think that let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about your career. So we talked a little bit about Swiss. We talked about some of the different technologies, and honestly, you're probably one of the most curious people I've ever met. Like you get an idea, and that to me that's a huge compliment because
Thank you.
curious people are really interesting, and curious people are the biggest contributors to forward progress, right? If there weren't curious people, there would not be innovation. So I think you're one of those ones. But I'm curious,
Thank
I'm
you.
personally curious about, what does your private practice look like? Like, are you do you own the clinic? Do you, like, what's going on there?
So I'm practicing 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from about 9 till about 6, and about 50% of my practice is um, people that are weight training, and the other
Hmm.
50% is the mothers, the daughters, the husbands, the fathers of these people that they've never weight trained, they will never weight train, but I'm able to take my skill set of trying to fix weight training injuries, which I think is probably the most complicated injury because we're always pushing it to the max. It's
Hmm.
different than a hockey or, football or anything else where that's a collision type of sport. Weight training, you have to fix the muscle, the joint, the nerve, and also the biochemistry of the system in order for everything to function properly. So I've always worked with that model of muscle, joint, nerve, biochemical issues and dysfunctions on that. So yeah, and in the other days I work on SWIS. I do a lot of presenting. I do a lot of writing, a lot of reading, and again, I'm just absorbing everything that I can about AI because this is the greatest opportunity to learn and to be able to utilize technology that we've never seen before. And everything I just watched a podcast with Mo Gadot. Mo Gadot was he was in charge of Google and deep learning. So he started working on AI in 2000 and building it out and building it out and building it out. And I'll send you the link to this
Yeah, I love that.
podcast because it's probably the most powerful and easy to understand aspect as far as what AI is and how much it's actually changing the entire industries. My job in 5 years will be gone. You'll be getting treated by robots. They're doing surgery with robots right now. It's called Da Vinci, where one of my patients, I think it was at Humber, and yeah, and the robot did her hip surgery. And people are like, I don't know if I want a robot, working on me. And it's like they're more accurate. They're not hungover. They just didn't have a fight with their wife. They
Yeah.
basically have all the information from all other Da Vinci machines around the world. So if you have a hip surgeon that has done maybe 100 surgeries, if you have the robots that you got one robot, but say there's 1,000 of them throughout the world that have all done 100, all of that is accumulated. So they've seen every single nuance and it's all accumulated within one. It's kind of a hard thing to really understand that's where it's going, but that is where it's going. And what Mo Gadot said, he says, it's the whole frog in the pot as far as turning up the heat. And he says it's boiling now. It's not that things are going to change; they have changed. And so one of my patients yesterday morning, she works at KPMG, and said, "You guys using AI?" She goes, "Yeah, yeah." In fact, I said, "How's it impacted?" He says, "We laid off a whole bunch of people. They lost their job because
Yeah.
it's redundant. So to become really good at something, and also from an educational, and also that's why I appreciate what you're doing as far as educating online. I was always kind of pushing back as far as this whole social media education. I think it's extremely valuable, but you still need the in-person
Oh, I
coaching,
totally
the
agree.
connection, and everything else. So I think it's a blend of both, and so that's why I created the Swiss Chat GPT so that people have access. Because the problem that I had is all of this information I've had over 25 years, unless you actually watch the video, you'd never understand it. You'd never see it.
Hmm.
So now you can access it. You can just type it in, utilize it, and you get all the answers of literally a couple of decades from the best people in the world. So you can leverage all of that. So I would recommend everyone just start using ChatGPT. The other one is Perplexity, which is similar to ChatGPT, but it gives you all the citations. The problem with ChatGPT is that it gives you information, you have no idea where it got it from. Perplexity gives you the citations. Here's the answer, and here's where we got the references. Because the problem with ChatGPT is that it's called hallucination, meaning that it just makes shit up. So you don't know what is actually truth and what isn't. And then you got Elon Musk, who is created Grok, Grok, and he scraped all of Twitter and has put all that up. So everything is changing. And then with the robots that are coming out, Elon Musk with Optimus and another one called Figure, within 2 to 3 years. we're going to have robots, basically, or humanoids, if you want to call it that, that we'll be working with. And it won't cost much. Like Elon Musk said, a robot will, or a humanoid will probably cost them $10,000 to be able to buy one for $20,000. That will make your food, that will walk your dog, that will, you can sing along with. Because one of the biggest pandemics that we have right now is the sense of loneliness. And
Hmm.
so if you have something there, here's the wild part. There is 50,000 AI influencers now on Instagram. These are people
I,
that
I,
they're not even, they don't exist, but people are connecting with them and everything else of that nature. That's the loneliness problem that we have. I got a dog, so that's what I
yeah,
did.
I have three.
Yeah.
Three and a wife. But yeah, I think the concept of education is one that honestly, education is my favorite part of my job. Like doing the online education and mentorship. I think that to me it lights my fire, but I approach it from the same direction as I approach coaching, right? My coaching is very educational, it's very interactive. So I'm confident that no GPT is going to be able to take my job because I'm hoping that the human element will always transfer through. And you mentioned like if you're only learning online, personally, you're missing the boat.
No, no. The Chat GPT is smarter than anyone else that I will have at SWIS. That's the wild part. It has nuances and the information that you and I would never, ever understand. It's better than us at chess. It's better than us at poetry. It's better than us than in writing. It's better than us in music. Like all these different things that we think that we're better. Uh-uh. No, right now, ChatGPT is the IQ is 155. Einstein was 162. When ChatGPT, so when it went from 3.5 to 4,
Mm.
the IQ went up tenfold. So it went up to 155. When ChatGPT 5 comes out, it will go up tenfold. It will be over 1,000, the IQ. They mold it out. When you watch this, you're going to understand the whole aspect of it. There's a thing called folding proteins, which is the most difficult thing in human biology, is to be able to fold a protein. And
Okay.
Mogadat basically said it would take a bunch of PhDs 8 months to create fold one protein. The computers were able to, they built an algorithm that it was able to fold 200 million proteins in a day. Like
Oh, that's not bad. That's pretty good.
that's back in 2016. That's 8 years ago. So everything that we understand and utilize, most people have, everyone figures that that AI came out in 2023 because Chat GPT showed up. It basically AI has been around since the early 2000s, but we had a browser similar as far as Google. Google came out in 1999 and we had access, but the internet was around for 15 years before. We just couldn't access it. The changes that we are going to see are just, now here's the cool part. AI will never replace you.
Hmm.
People using AI will replace people that don't use it, because
100%.
the nuances that it can create and the thoughts and the way that it can put, it can take your coaching from here to here. It
Oh, I
can
couldn't
answer
agree more.
questions that you could never even think of, let alone answer. So if you leverage it, if there's anything that anyone gets out of this little podcast, is start using AI. And it's not as if everyone's like, oh, the robots are going to kill us. I'm more afraid of the humans. The
Yeah, me
shit that's
too.
happening in Russia and Ukraine and Israel and China, and like, I mean, it's just mind blowing, and with the whole political discourse in Canada, United States, and we're not going to go down that pathway. But I mean, the humans are more bizarre than AI could ever be. So, so use it ethically, meaning that you can take your marketing, your ideas, your concepts, just like I'm going to use AI for all of my information. This is a godsend. And guess what? It's free. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Like, I mean, the chat GPT is $20 a month. I spend more on, lunch than that could literally change. Well, not literally change my life. It is changing my life. Like just the
Yeah.
way that I'm putting together websites. You can put together a website, I don't know, in 15 minutes. I don't have to hire anyone. I've spent $15,000 on people building me websites. Now
Oh
I
my
can do
God.
it myself, and it's 10 times better than anyone else could do, and I can make all the changes. In fact, I don't even do the changes. It just changes the program. It is just start investigating it. Go on YouTube. That's where I'm getting all my education. I'm part of a AI masterclass with Perry Belcher, who's with digital marketer, and the changes that you can do, and get away from all the different nuances and things that I don't want to do. It's just it's going to change. It's not going to change. It is changing everyone's life. So that's the biggest thing that I'm doing. As far as you asked me, what am I doing? That's where I'm shifting. And if I can leverage, not if, when I leverage all of this AI information to try and impact as many people as possible all over the world, unbelievable. And yes, I'm still going to do live events. But I have to
Of
tell you,
course.
the entire conference industry has changed. I
Oh,
was
for
just
sure.
at CanFit in August presenting, and CanFit usually had about 5,000 people. There was maybe 700. Like, I mean, nobody was there. IDEA and URSA, one of the biggest conferences in the world in California, used to have 10,000, maybe 1,000 people. Like, I mean,
Yep.
everything. And I get it because people are getting their information online. But that's why I'm going to try an experiment, because after last year, I said I wasn't going to do it because we only had, I don't know, 290 people actually
Hmm.
come to SWIS, which was the smallest group that in 24 years. And
Right.
Dave Tate and I, we spent so much money getting marketing and all that. And people are like, yeah, I can get this all online. And here's the wild part. I'm, I talked to about 40 people out, in the hallway, in the presentation room, in the bar, in the restaurant. And I said, what was the highlight of the symposium for you? This was last year in October 2023. Everyone said the hallway, the
Hallway,
conversations,
for sure.
and everything
100%.
else. And I said, did you go to any of the presentations? And they went, yeah, yeah, it was nice. I saw it before on YouTube. Yeah, it was nice. And I went, oh, okay. So unless it's experiential, like Paul Gagne and Brian Peters, everyone's laying on the floor learning how to breathe and blowing into balloons. You can't get that on TikTok. You
Nope.
know, you know Working with Ed Cohn on stage, you can't get that on TikTok. So there's a blend. We don't need to fight together, but all conferences now have to make it interactive. And I'm even doing that with nutrition, which is such a bizarre concept, but that will be interactive too.
I love it. I want to be mindful of your time, and I do have a couple quick hit questions for you as we finish up. If you had to put, your top three innovators in the industry, who would they be? Just three people.
Top three innovators in my industry. One would be Dr. David Leaf, who does all the different muscle testing. And he does it in a way that is very step by step by step by step. Muscle testing or applied kinesiology can get very esoteric.
Hmm.
And you can go off on all different pathways, which is good, but also as far as flow chart idea, if you find this, do this, find this, do this. So I've been to 130 weekend seminars over the past 30 years of his. And so, and I told David that, and he says, well, either I'm really good or you're stupid. And I said, I'll go with the former. In fact, I'm going to go see him in a couple of weeks down in Virginia to take it up again, because I always learn two, three, four different ideas from him. So he's one of the major innovators. The other one would be Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale, who was so innovative in his nutrition,
Hmm.
he applied it. His knowledge on drugs was astronomical. In fact, he was at my clinic a number of years ago, and we were talking about creatine and muscle tech and all of that.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, well, I was the first one to actually identify creatine for weight training. And I went, no, you weren't. It was Dan Duchesne. He says, no, it wasn't. He says, you got use and detection of anabolic steroids, in your library there. I said, yeah, it's your book that you wrote. And so he says, pull it out. Look on page 89. So and he had it there. He says, the reason why steak works so well for powerlifters is because it has creatine in it. And creatine increases all of this. He says, it just took us a while. I went, oh my God. So yeah, I would definitely say Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale. He is one of my mentors in that area. The other one that has changed soft tissue therapy is Dr. Mike Leahy with active
Hmm.
release technique.
For
He
sure.
took it to such a high level. It was just unbelievable that he's ability when you feel the tissues and the different angles and how you do it. So I was an assistant instructor for a number of years, and most people don't do active release correctly. They press too hard. So that would be another person. Dr. Rob Rakowski, who takes functional medicine and puts it into a format as far as evidence based and really understanding how you can put that together. Dr. Bruce putting this together as far as the MPS Dolphins, game changer. Just uh, I don't need to stick people with needles all the time. I still do that, but this, you're able to treat the ear, and literally in less than 4 minutes, you treat what is known as battlefield acupuncture. It changes the entire brain for PTSD, for concussions, and everything else. You treat that area, it'll decrease your heart rate. It'll drop you from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic, and I've done that a number of times. Dr. Norm Shealy, who created this unit along with 12 other ones that I have throughout the house that are just crazy units. Dr. Sandy Wood, who did German biological medicine along with Dr. Karim Dehani, that they look at the blood, they look at all different ways. They have a intravenous laser. So they put intravenously different laser tubes, and those different frequencies of laser changes the blood. Like, I mean, it's just astronomical. That's from Germany, and he's got a whole bunch of other stuff, and they're measuring mitochondrial function and where's the step that it starts to break down, and then what are the energy systems that you need to do to actually change that. I can go on and on. I have a
Man,
lot of mentors.
I truly do hope that people watch this video because your excitement level, like I ask you a question, it's like 0 to 100 and you're just fucking fired up. I love it.
You know what? I've been doing this for such a long. I'm so I'm, I turn my passion into my profession. So I've always been interested in doing this, and even after 30 years, people are going, "Are you going to retire and all that?" And do what? I love
Yeah.
doing this. This is not work. This is not work to me. And I'm able to create environments, which is what I've done with SWIS, to bring in all these world leaders all together for everyone, but also to really understand how they work synergistically. And the wild part is these leaders teach each other. And
Yep.
now it's like, oh, because they would never see it or go to another seminar just because of the stigma with that. But they'll sit in the back of the room and they'll go, oh, so that's what you mean. And then they'll have a discussion, outside in the hallway and everything else. So I hope people do come to this SWIS. It's one day. I was very cognizant of people's time. I made it very, very affordable. In fact,
Yeah,
I'd
you
like
did.
to offer the super duper early price for all of people that are listening to this. And what they can do is they can go to SWIS 99. I don't know if is that reversed?
No, that's good.
Yeah, so SWIS 99, and that'll take $99 off. So it'll go from 100 or $297 to $198. And
Amazing.
it will be it will change your life. Short story, John Berardi in the early 2000s was presenting for me. He was the one with Precision Nutrition. He met the two
Yep.
people at Swiss, and they were like, we should put together a nutrition program. And because of that, they created Precision Nutrition, and John sold it for reportedly $180 million.
Yeah, he did pretty okay
Yeah, a
on
little
that
bit.
sale.
Yeah, it's a little tough, but yeah.
I mean, he's scraping by. He's probably not, he's not buying those expensive lunches like you are, but
But I mean, you never know who you're sitting beside. People that have met there, they got married. Like, I mean, it's a wild time. It's so much fun, very like-minded. We talk about anabolic steroids, we talk about supplements, you'll see shit there that you've never seen before, guaranteed. But also have discussions and deep discussions with different people. So the breaks are half hour long because that way you can have your hallway chat GPT where you can actually, connect and work with that. So
I love it. The last question I have for you, if there was one person that you think I should have on the podcast to interview, who would it be? But the
Matt Nickel.
caveat, if you listen, I had him in person and I've been trying to get him on the podcast. You need to text him and say, you need to go on Paul's podcast.
You know what? I would just talk to him at SWIS.
I talked to him at Swiss. I texted him, I called him, and I saw him in person. Dude is so busy. And
Yeah,
here's a public call out. Matt Nickel, get on the podcast.
yeah, yeah. No, Matt is probably one of the more brilliant guys. He's also one of the busiest.
Yeah,
So
I
Matt
love
would be
Matt.
one. I would have Dave Tate.
Already had him. That
Oh, you
was that
did?
was a really cool podcast. Yeah,
Matt Wenning?
I'll okay. I'll do Matt
Do you know
Wenning.
Matt?
I've met him a couple times. Listen, he's become quite a polarizing figure in the industry. So I'd talk to him for sure.
Yeah, no, he just got his PhD, and so he's gone down the evidence-based aspect. Yeah, Matt has a strong personality. The other one would be Justin Kavanaugh. Have you had Justin on?
I did. I'm actually Justin is a good friend of mine and a mentor of mine as well. So I talk to him very often. I should have him on for another one. Be
Yeah,
good.
no, he's done a lot of really, really good work. Owen Lacey.
Oh, that'd be a good one. Yep. All right.
So if you want to sign up for SWIS, it's SWIS2024.com. You'll have the link in the show
Yep.
notes, and we'll
Absolutely. Well,
put that coupon code in. But it's this will be one for the books. This will be different than what you've seen before, Paul.
I can't wait.
Guaranteed.
I can't wait. Ken, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I will have links to everything in the show notes for Swiss, the discount code. Thank you so much for your generosity. And everyone, thank you
Absolutely.
so much for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And we'll catch you on the next one.